Time for episode 60 of the Press Box Podcast. And in this episode, we are going to talk about NFL Week 11 that just concluded last night with the Buccaneers-Rams game. We'll talk about that game and some other topics we felt really led the way for the NFL in Week 11. We'll get into some quarterback discussion, as we always like to do. Talk a little bit about the playoff picture here as we come down to the final stretch of the NFL season here, about 5-6 weeks left. And then we'll touch on a little bit of college football before we wrap this episode up. But before we get started, we want to make sure we mention our Twitter account here at the start of the show. If you're not following us on Twitter, make sure you do that at PressBoxPod. We've had some poll questions. We update you guys in the latest episodes when they're out, when you can listen to them. And, hopefully we'll try to be producing some more content on Twitter as well. So look for that and follow us on Twitter again at PressBoxPod. But without further ado, let's get into episode 60 of the Press Box Podcast.
Okay, welcome back to the Press Box Podcast. I'm your co-host, Ralph Miranda, joined by my other co-host, Joseph Miranda, and of course our producer, Nathan Miranda. This is episode 60. We have reached the Tommy Nobis episode of the Press Box Podcast. For those of you who may remember
We're over 85 years old.
The over 85-year-old group. Tommy Nobis was a great linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons back in the late 60s and early 70s, but you may prefer a different player, but that's okay. Anyway, episode 60. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the most recently concluded Week 11 of the NFL. We're going to talk a little bit about quarterback play, as we've done once before. We're going to talk a little bit about college football as we get towards the end of a very up and down, weird season, and then just anything that comes up in the podcast. So, Joseph, how are you doing today? And as we're getting ready, we're recording this as we're getting ready for Thanksgiving, and looking forward to 3 NFL games on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, that's right. It's always one of the best NFL days of the year. Really, no matter what the matchups are, it's all the fun that goes on with Thanksgiving. But I'm sure we'll touch on those games coming up here. A real good Thursday night game, Steelers and Ravens. But kind of like you mentioned here, talking about the week that just concluded, Week 11. I guess we'll start there. The Steelers 10-0 now, 27-3 over Jacksonville. Did Jacksonville win Week 1?
They did,
and they've lost 9 straight. Thought they did. Yeah,
they beat the Colts. I think Week 1, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and
it seems like forever ago.
Right, Minshew Mania and all that. That's just gone down the tube. But we broke down the Steelers' chances, I guess, in our last episode of maybe going undefeated. I still don't think they do it, but
no.
This is one that we checked off in the win column, and they certainly did win. So
that was definitely a win, and they've got the Ravens coming up here on Thanksgiving night, which is a whole nother game given what's going on with the COVID-19. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I think the Steelers have shown that they're probably, I'm not going to call them the class of the AFC, because you got the defending Super Bowl champs sitting out there, the Kansas City Chiefs. And, as Nathan and I both know with our fantasy team, when you've got Patrick Mahomes, which we don't have, but when you've got Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and the weapons they've got, they're a very, very hard team to defend. Their defense concerns me, and that's, I think, the situation where if you get into a game with the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh, which looks like more than likely that's where it would be, it almost could come down to a situation where the Steeler defense, which is ranked number 1, could make a couple plays that the Chiefs defense could not make, and that could give the Steelers the victory. So I'm still a little bit concerned about the Chiefs defense. We saw that last year in the 2 playoff games when they fell behind early. But again, it's hard to not admit that the Kansas City offense is probably the best offense in football right now. It could be the best offense we've seen in quite some time.
Yeah. Big win by them over the Raiders on Sunday night. Just to really put them in the driver's seat in the division because the Raiders had beaten them earlier.
Right.
And yeah, that like you said, that last drive, it just fed Hill and Kelsey the whole drive pretty much, and then hit Kelsey for the touchdown. It was pretty much wide open for what was a do or die situation for the Raiders. They were coming down in the final second, so that was a little strange. But yeah, as we've said, or I've said from the start of the season, I think the Raiders still get in the playoffs. They're 6-4. Maybe we can touch on the playoff picture here at the end, but I still think they find a way to get in.
Yeah, they still control their own destiny.
Yeah, okay. So I think they do get in. Patriots done? I think they're done.
Yeah, that's
for this season.
Yeah, I think they're done. I mean, I think
4-6.
They're 4-6. Even maybe Nathan, if you wouldn't mind, Nathan, when you get a chance, pick up or pull up the remaining Patriots schedule for us. But they almost would have to go at least 5-1 down the stretch to even have a chance.
Yeah, minimum. Yeah,
minimum, and that's probably not even going to do it. Because you got the Browns at 7-3, you've got the Raiders at 6-4, you got the Colts and the Titans both at 7-3. Yeah. One of those is going to win the division. One of them is probably going to be a playoff team.
Dolphins 6-4.
The Dolphins are 6-4. So it doesn't look good for the Patriots right now. And I know their remaining schedule. They have
I got it pulled up for you.
Okay, so tell us, Nathan, who they've got coming up. The remaining schedule for the Patriots.
All right. This Sunday they host the Arizona Cardinals.
All right, that could be a loss.
Week 13 they're at the Chargers.
Okay, that could be a loss, but probably would win.
Week 14 they stay out there. They're at the Rams.
Okay, that's a loss.
Week 15 they're at the Dolphins.
Yeah. And then
Week 16 they host the Bills.
Yeah.
Week 17 they host the Jets.
Yeah, they're done. They're done. Yeah, I don't see them winning 5 of those 6 games. I really don't. I see them winning maybe 2 or 3.
I think they can lose all of them except the Jets.
Well, yeah. I mean, and they could. You're exactly right. And another question is going to be how much. This is an interesting question too. You look at the Patriots. They put up a stat Sunday that the Patriots have made the playoffs 11 straight seasons. They've won the division 11 straight years. How do they react mentally to the fact of where they are? Do they give it everything they got? I don't want to say that they're going to tank it. I'm just saying, as a player, when you're so used to winning and all of a sudden you're faced with a situation where it doesn't look good, do you really kind of maybe mentally pack it in?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys on the team that have never experienced this, obviously.
Right.
Assuming they play their whole career with the Patriots.
Right.
Guys from other teams have, but that's very interesting. And then you got Belichick there, who's probably he wants to win, but at the same time he's probably thinking about how he can build for next year, and the years beyond. Because I'm not sure Cam Newton's their long-term answer. He's definitely not. I don't think.
No, he's not the long-term.
They signed him to a 1-year deal to see what happens, and he's made them competitive, but he's also made some dumb plays, and
right.
He's not what he was.
No,
I think they've signed another year deal. They just give
it depends on what they believe they could get at quarterback. I guess. They got this Jared Stidham guy that they got from Auburn. I'm not sure if they know he's the guy. If they did, I guess they'd play him, or at least give him a chance. They got what's the backup Hoyer? He's not. He's just a backup. That's all he is. You got to figure the Patriots are going to probably draft in the mid to late 20s, probably around mid 20s. No, what am I saying? Mid 20s. The Patriots are going to draft probably in the top 10. So they're probably going to get they probably could get a pretty good quarterback if they wanted to in the draft. So we'll see. And I think Belichick, Belichick, let's face it, Belichick's not stupid. He knew this year was going to be a challenge, and I think he's okay with what's happening from the standpoint of that he's going to take his draft picks and he's going to pick somebody up that he can mold the team around. I think you're going to see a big shakeup as far as personnel of where he wants to take the team, after this, assuming he wants to stay there another 4 or 5 years. I don't know if he does or not.
If he wants to stay there, if he doesn't want to stay there, why would he have coached this season? If he knew it was going to be like that.
Well, I think there was a little bit of ego there that he wanted to see if he could show that he could do it without Tom Brady.
Well, you said he figured it was going to be like this, though.
Well, I know, but still, Well,
now he definitely can't quit because because he can't. He's shown that he can't do it. So
right.
What do you think of us? I saw some some memes and stuff after the Jets beat the Patriots just a couple of weeks ago, right? Saying that
the Jets didn't beat the Patriots. No. They gave him a good fight. Yeah. The Bills.
Was it the Bills?
Yeah, the Bills beat the Patriots on the Cam Newton fumble.
All right, never mind that. I don't know what I was talking
Well,
about.
we can just tell what you say. You saw something.
Well, it was something about, I thought it was the Jets beating them.
Didn't beat them.
Jets
I know, that's why I don't know what I saw then, but something about how it was like a comedy thing trying to say how Belichick was like letting the Jets win so they don't get the first pick, but I know the Jets didn't win, so I don't know what it was.
Yeah, well, maybe they were thinking that possibly could happen. I don't know, but
basically trying to deny them.
I think I did see that. Yeah, I think I did see that.
Saying that he was out there playing chess, where everybody else was playing checkers.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think I saw that they were talking about, he's still trying to hurt the Jets, even 20 years later, which I did see something like that. But yeah, there was even rumors out there that, which I think was interesting, that Belichick's going to retire as coach of the Patriots and go over to the Giants and be their general manager, which
I think that'd be the right move.
Would be a great move because he's got Joe Judge there, who was on his staff for many years, and if there's one thing we know Bill Belichick can do, and that's get personnel.
And I think
You've seen news about this, or you're just hoping for it as a
No, I saw some rumors.
I think that'd be way better than him trying to coach another team.
I agree. Yeah, he's not going to coach another team, but I mean, and this is true. I mean, but I read where he still has a great fondness for the Giant organization. And
well, he obviously does.
Yeah, so that would be a logical move for him, assuming he didn't want to coach anymore.
Remember that thing? I don't know if it was Football Life or what, but Info Network I followed him around for a couple of weeks back, like in 2007 or something. Remember he was in they were playing the Giants and he was in the stadium, or maybe they were playing the Giants.
I remember that.
He was talking about the old film room and stuff, and he was tearing up. He obviously loved his time with the Giants.
He did, of course he did. I think the Giants made a big mistake back then. Of course, he left the Giants when Parcells retired after their second Super Bowl. They should have named Belichick the head coach. That would have been the right move at that point. But that's all conjecture right now. But you got to figure Belichick's got to feel like the dynasty is over. I mean, it's done. So you're 67 years old or 68, whatever he is. How much more do you want to put into an organization that you're done? I mean, it's over. So that would be a good move for him. But yeah, let's go back to the Patriots are done this year. They're not even going to make the playoffs, so that handles that.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're all in agreement there. Let's talk about the Ravens, okay?
Yeah, let's talk about the Ravens.
Losing in overtime to the Titans 30-24 yesterday. Titans, again, featuring Derrick Henry down the stretch, who just kind of beat up the Ravens and wore them down.
Right.
And had the big breakaway run for the win in overtime. But that puts the Ravens at 6-4 now, okay?
Right.
Third in the division because you got the Browns at 7-3.
Right.
Fighting for their playoff lives.
Yeah, they're not even in the playoffs right now.
Right. So we talked about a little bit about this before the episode, but not the same team as last year, obviously. Okay.
Right.
Lamar Jackson not following up his MVP performance quite the same way. Looks like he's looking to throw the ball more. Now that's something that I think you said you thought they were telling him to do this. They're trying to rein him in from running a little bit and not get hurt, right?
Yeah, that's my philosophy. I think I think you could see last. Let me go back. This is what I said. I think last year the Ravens were by far the best team in the league in the regular season. Right? They were 14-2. Right. Nobody could seem to stop them. Okay. Then you got into the playoffs against the Titans, and the Titans were able to get a lead on them. And the Ravens, and they were able to stop their running game, and the Ravens had to throw. Okay, so it was obvious, nobody's going to deny this, that Lamar Jackson could not throw the ball outside the numbers, at that point. Everything was across the middle, to tight ends. Tight ends are their biggest receivers. Okay. So I think they tried to say, look, we know Lamar Jackson can run the football, but if we're going to be a successful football team, we've got to develop our passing game. Watching that game Sunday with the Titans, there were many situations where last year he would have tucked it and ran it, but he didn't. He tried to find a receiver open, and he would scramble, and he would overthrow a guy or throw it out of bounds when there was nothing there. And I just think they're trying to tell him, look for your receivers, go through your progressions. And I don't think he's got the ability right now to do that. He's just not a developed passing quarterback just yet. And I think that's hurting them. I think if they want to make the playoffs, they're going to have to go back to just turning him loose, let him run the football, and that brought up the discussion that why did you commit to him, change your entire offense, and now you're telling him to throw the ball more. I don't get that.
Well, you think they're telling him to throw the ball more because they're trying to protect him, or because they just want to mold him into a pocket passer?
I think both. Both. I mean, the more you run the football as a quarterback, the more hits you're going to take. I think they want him around some, but they also realize that you're not. They saw that last year against the Titans. Yeah. You're not going to win in the playoffs against good teams just by running the football with your quarterback and throwing passes to your tight ends across the middle. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, we talked about this the other day, didn't we, on Sunday? Like you just said, the question you just posed there, I don't know how to answer it because, I don't see, like you said, if they knew that's what they needed, right, a pocket passer, so A, they'll be on the field more, they won't get injured, and B, they have a better chance to win. If you knew that initially, which it seems like I guess they didn't know that. I guess they thought he was the guy and he could lead the Super Bowl, and then they realized in the playoffs the last 2 years that he can't. Now that maybe they regret the decision, right? Maybe that's the answer.
I think look.
Maybe they didn't know that that's what they needed back when they drafted him. And now they realize after seeing him in the playoffs, maybe that we can't win this way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with that. I think it's like eye candy, right? I mean, when you go in, when a young kid goes into a candy store, their eyes get really big, right? I mean, it's like, wow, look at all this stuff, and they want a little bit of that, and they want a little bit of this. But then after a while, you realize that you're going to get sick when you eat too much candy. So it's kind of like the Ravens. I mean, they had this talent in Lamar Jackson. He's big, he's strong, he can run, he can do a lot. He can throw the ball. There's no question he's got a strong arm. And they thought, look, we have something that nobody else has. They went and got this Greg Roman guy as their offensive coordinator, who was the offensive coordinator for the 49ers back when they decided to go with Colin Kaepernick, right? And that was successful for a few years, okay? But it didn't win. It got him to a Super Bowl, but they didn't win the Super Bowl, okay?
He was, I think, Kaepernick, there was more of a success than Lamar Jackson.
He could throw the ball a little better than Lamar Jackson, okay? Go ahead. That's right. But my point is, that's what they went and did, okay? Well, then they realized, and they went through last year, the regular season, dominated everybody, and then all of a sudden they get in the playoffs, bang, they're out, all right? Because what did the Titans do? The Titans got a lead. They used Derrick Henry to pound the ball. The Ravens had to catch up, and they couldn't do it. So I think now they're starting to say, hey, wait a minute. We got this guy. We know we can run the ball. We can dominate the regular season, okay, if we want to. Yeah. But we've got to figure out a way to get through the playoffs, okay? And I think now they're starting to try to not so much tell him not to run, but tell him, look, go to all your progressions. In other words, I think last year he would look at one or two guys and then decide to run. This year he's trying to look at 1, 2, 3, and maybe even 4, and when they're not there, he's just throwing it away, And I think that's what's happening this year. Now, the question we brought up, which you made a good point to, Nathan, Sunday, was, he's got 2 years left. He's got 1 year left on his contract, and then an option year, a club option year. Yeah. So they're going to keep him around next year, all right? And then they'll probably pick up his option. But my feeling is, and Nathan made a good point of this, it was an excellent point, that, if you get rid of him, you got to get rid of the coach, right? So I think what they're going to do is, I think they're going to keep him around next year, probably pick up his option. I think if they can't get deep into the playoffs the next couple of years and make a serious run at a Super Bowl, I think you're going to see the Ravens cut bait from Lamar Jackson and from Harbaugh. I think they're going to just go in a totally different direction.
Well, I think that's what they should do. I think what they will do is they're going to give him an extension after this season or sometime next season. Because they're sitting there thinking, okay, we've got a guy that makes us competitive. Like, do we have a better option on the horizon? No. I mean, we have to go find somebody else in the draft.
Right.
And we just talked about how the lengths they went through to change their whole offense to suit his needs.
Right.
I think they're just like, hey, we're just going to keep trying to do this every year, and they're going to give him an extension, and because they feel like that's the best they have, So, but I agree with you. I would not give him one. I would, keep him on his rookie deal as long as I can. So for next year and the option year, and then see what happens. But,
we'll see what happens the next couple of years if they do that. But it does sound strange to say, okay, we're going to clean out, we're going to get rid of our QB, starting quarterback, get rid of our head coach, which basically means the coaching staff, and start over when you just made the playoffs. Maybe at that point, maybe 4 years in a row. It does sound strange.
I said back in the episode where we talked about quarterbacks, there's especially 7 good quarterbacks, and if you're not one of them, you're basically worthless. Lamar Jackson's not in the 7 good quarterbacks category, so it really doesn't matter who they have a quarterback because they're not going to win anything. So they might as well go look for another guy.
Yeah, that's true.
In my opinion. But
well, I mean, look at who they won 2 Super Bowls. The Ravens. The first one they won purely on their defense. All right. Second one they won because of Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
All right. Joe Flacco was a quarterback that could throw the ball down the field, and they won. All right. So, we talked about this on one of our previous episodes. Name me a team that has won a Super Bowl. There's a couple, but without having some really good quarterback play. I mean, you got to have it.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ravens in 2000 was one of them. Okay.
The Buccaneers with Brad Johnson.
The Buccaneers, but even Brad Johnson, people are going to laugh at me when I say this. I would take Brad Johnson over Lamar Jackson. Okay, because Brad Johnson can't run it, but he was an efficient passer. He wasn't a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady, but he was a good quarterback.
I'm not saying I wouldn't take him over Lamar Jackson. I was just answering, would you say that they had like stellar quarterback play with him?
You have to have really good quarterback play. You have to have a quarterback that can throw the ball down the field and make good decisions, okay? And I think that's the problem. I mean, look at Lamar Jackson. I mean, he made one good throw on a touchdown to one of his tight ends Sunday down the seam, which put them ahead 21-10. Now you got to say the defense didn't play very well either. I mean, you're up 21-10 and you let the Titans come back, okay? But even when the Titans scored, remember when the Titans were down 21-13, they were down there on the goal line, they couldn't punch it in, they kicked the field goal, make it 21-16. The Ravens couldn't move the ball. Yeah. Okay, see, that's the thing. You got to get to a point. You got to have a quarterback and an offense that can say, "Hey, we've got a lead right now. There's 4 minutes left of the game. We've got to be able to move the football." You're not always going to be able to do it, no question. But in situations like that, if you want to be a Super Bowl champion, you've got to be able to move the football and nurse the clock and protect the lead. And the Ravens couldn't do that. And that's the issue you're going to deal with if you want to be a Super Bowl caliber football team. I mean. It's just the way it is.
Right. And we mentioned their year last year, obviously, but the year before, the same thing happened, essentially. I mean, Lamar Jackson took over about halfway through, and the Chargers beat him in the first round.
Exactly. Yeah, the Chargers beat him in the first round. Yeah. So this year they may not even make the playoffs. But if they do make the playoffs, it's probably going to be the 7th or 6th seed, which means they're going to have to either probably go to Kansas City, or somewhere like that first round. And I just don't see them. I don't see them winning in the first round. I just don't see it. Their defense is not as good as it was last year. Now you got a situation, which I said we would talk about. They play the Steelers on Thanksgiving night in Pittsburgh. Right. They've already now had multiple COVID-19 positive tests. You've got two running backs, Ingram and I forget the other guy's name. Dobbins. That's it. Yeah. Both of them are out because they've tested positive. So Gus Edwards is going to be your go-to running back. They're going to have to bring some guy up from the practice squad to give him to spell him a little bit. You got other guys now that have been on the COVID-19 list. The NFL is still saying the game's going to be played. If the game is played, I don't see them beating the Steelers. I mean, I just don't see it happening given the situation.
I agree.
Now you're going to be 6-5. Your season is pretty much over there. I mean, Lamar Jackson a couple weeks ago said, teams know what we're doing. And I mean, come on, of course they know what you're doing. I mean, they knew what you were doing last year, but they couldn't stop you. Right?
Yeah, it's not a great comment.
No, it's not a very good comment. I mean, I just, you gotta,
I don't think he was trying to throw the coordinator under the bus. I think he just said that.
Yeah.
I don't think he meant anything by it. Some people try to say he was throwing the Greg Norman guy.
Yeah.
Every team knows what every team's doing. The Chiefs are going to throw it.
Yeah. Right.
Mahomes. The Titans are going to give it to Henry. Yeah. So, I mean, you just got to stop them.
Right. I mean, listen.
Good.
No, one more thing. I'm willing to admit that the days of a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, type quarterback, Joe Flacco, are over. And what I mean by that is, you're not going to see NFL teams anymore with statues in the backfield. It's just not going to happen, okay? Guys that can throw the ball really well and are very smart quarterbacks and can make the right reads, but they can't move, all right? The quarterbacks of today are, right, the Russell Wilson types, the Patrick Mahomes types, the Deshaun Watson types, guys that can throw the football effectively but can get out of trouble in the backfield.
Kyler Murray.
Exactly. Okay.
I think even the guys who aren't quite at that level still have more mobility than the guys you're talking about, like Joe Burrow,
right?
The guy for the Chargers they just drafted,
right?
Daniel Jones. These guys aren't at that level, but they still have a lot more mobility than Eli Manning, Peyton Manning.
Correct, and that's the quarterback of the future. The guy that look at this Herbert guy, right, for the Chargers, Justin Herbert, right?
Yeah.
He's got a rocket arm. I mean, this guy is probably the best young quarterback of the group that's come out.
Yeah,
He's got mobility. He doesn't look to run, but he can get out of trouble. All right, that's what you need. Okay, that's what makes Patrick Mahomes so difficult. You know, in that last drive Sunday night, if you're a defense, you better sack him. If you can't sack him, now your coverage breaks down because we talked about Kelsey being wide open, right? Yeah. The more guys run in the secondary, it's hard for the secondary to cover. You know, it's hard to stay with guys and to stay in your appointed zones for too long of a time. That's the problem you run into right now with a Lamar Jackson type quarterback or, you know, a guy that's a statue in the backfield. I mean, that's the issue, you know, I think. But anyway.
All right, so let's shift gears here and talk. I want to touch on this Dolphins game, but this will lead into another discussion here about quarterbacks that we brought up a point yesterday we want to kick around, but so the Dolphins lost to the Broncos, but they benched Tua.
Right.
Okay, to bring in Fitzpatrick. But then they come Flores comes after the game, the coach, and says, no, well, Tua's still our starter.
Right.
Well, if he's still your starter, still good enough to be your starter, why was he not good enough to finish the game?
Right.
Right? Like, and
it was strange.
I think the whole situation's ridiculous because they should have never sat Fitzpatrick in the first place when they were.
I agree.
4-3, is that right?
4-3.
When they made the call.
Right.
And they essentially got lucky and won the next two games.
Right.
The defense beat the Rams basically by themselves, and they were able to pull that one out against the Cardinals, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, that the whole deal yesterday was ridiculous. I think you got to pick one or the other. They should have stuck with Fitzpatrick, but I guess that kind of leads us into this conversation. You brought up the idea of a closer at quarterback, okay? Where in this scenario, I guess Fitzpatrick they basically made him the closer yesterday. They thought he had the best chance to give him the best chance to finish the game.
But he blew the save.
He blew the save.
Of course, it's not a save. They were behind, right?
So,
but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so you can explain.
No, what we were talking. Yeah, this is my new theory. Is we were talking about this Sunday. Is that, you know, back in the 60s and 70s, starters in Major League Baseball went complete games, right? Guys pitched complete games all the time. I mean, whether they were getting rocked or whether they were pitching two hitters, they stayed out there. Then all of a sudden the game changed, right? You had middle relievers, late relievers, long relievers, short relievers. And then the closer came on. Closer came on probably in the 80s is when they first hit, maybe the 70s, late 70s. But anyway, my point is now you very rarely see a starting pitcher go 9 innings unless he's got a no-hitter going, all right? Or unless they're way ahead, he's pitching a one-hitter, they might leave him in there. But they bring in a closer. All right, why can't you do that in the NFL? All right, here's my point. Take Nick Foles. Yeah. Nick Foles is a horrible starting quarterback. Right. I'm sorry, okay? But the guy seems to have a knack for coming off the bench and leading a team to victory. All right, he did it in Philadelphia. He did it in Chicago. Of course, he was never on the bench in Jacksonville. They made him a starter, but he was no good there. So he's your classic closer. Okay. Now Fitzpatrick is not a closer. Fitzpatrick's the kind of guy that you start him. All right, he's going to give you a good chance to win, but he's not going to come off the bench and win games for you. Take Jameis Winston. All right, we were talking about this game the other day. Drew Brees didn't play Sunday. Everybody was wondering all week, who are the Saints going to start? Are they going to start Taysom Hill or are they going to start Jameis Winston? They ended up starting Taysom Hill. We were watching the broadcast and the announcers were saying that they had done a New Orleans game a few weeks earlier and they talked to Sean Payton about it. They asked him, they said, what happens if Drew Brees goes down? What do you do? He says, well, probably we'd bring Jameis Winston in the middle of the game, but if we had a week to prepare, we'd probably go with Taysom Hill. All right. My point is, Jameis Winston is a closer, right? He's got tremendous athletic ability. He can throw the football. He's proved that. He's the guy you bring in a tough situation to close it. But he's not a starter. He's not the guy that you put it all on his shoulder. Yeah. So why not go in the NFL like that? Why not say, look, we're bringing you in, all right, as our closer. More than likely you're going to sit on the bench, okay? But if we have a young quarterback like a Daniel Jones who tends to throw a lot of interceptions, who if we have a lead going into the fourth quarter, Jones, you're sitting. Foles, you're coming in. Lead us to victory. Next week, Jones, you're back in there.
That's interesting.
I mean, and on the surface, it sounds ridiculous, but wait a second. I'm saying the idea of a Major League Baseball closure. So we designate one guy that has the ninth inning. That sounded ridiculous 30 years ago, or 40 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think the football thing sounds that ridiculous.
No,
teams already do that. They don't plan to, but they already do it. The Dolphins just did it. I mean, you don't think Fitzpatrick is a closer, but they basically just did that, right?
Yeah,
right.
Kind of. Yeah, but what I'm saying, I see what you're saying, but here's what I'm saying. Right now in the current NFL, the only time you see that is when the quarterback play is really bad, right? All right. I'm saying even if your quarterback is playing well, if he's a kind of guy, if he's young, he's early in his career, or he just has a tendency to not close a game out, you say, hey, go sit down. We're going to bring in the closer.
No, I know what you mean. No one does that right now.
Right.
I'm just saying it doesn't even sound that ridiculous because it's not that far off from.
I agree.
Right. You already see two quarterbacks play during one game.
I guess the counter to that is how do you develop a young quarterback and have him become
never let him play.
Never let him play in those fourth quarter situations.
That's true. That's the only caveat to the plan.
Unless you have a guy that you know is never going to be that guy.
Well, here that brings up another interesting question for us. Okay, is what did we talk about in our quarterback show? Is you've got to draft the quarterback, right? You got to have a franchise quarterback. Well, in my scenario, you don't need a franchise quarterback. All you got to do is find two pretty good quarterbacks. One like a Fitzpatrick or somebody like that, and a closer, right? You don't need to draft a number one quarterback. All you need to do is find two guys, a closer and a guy that can get you to the fourth quarter.
You might even save money from
exactly. You save a bunch of money. That's right, which you can put into your defensive line, your linebackers. Think about that. If you save $20 million off of a franchise quarterback, you can do a lot of things with that money.
Okay, but that sounds a lot easier to do if it's week 10. Okay, we got the lead, put in our closure. It's like an easy decision if you're going to use that model. But it's a lot tougher to make that decision, isn't it? Let's say you're in the AFC Championship game or the NFC Championship game, and Daniel Jones is playing great, and you got the lead in the fourth quarter by 10 points. Okay. It becomes a tougher decision than.
Well, not really. If you've been doing it all season.
Well, that's right. Yeah, and then what about baseball? Right. Yeah. What happened in the sixth game of the World Series here just a few weeks ago? The guy made a decision to go to his closer. All right, but it was the wrong decision. Okay, that's what I'm saying. And that could happen in football too. I mean, your closer could come out there. There's no guarantee he's gonna save every game.
Well, the difference in the NFL though, which would be more to your point, if you
only have a few games.
No, you don't worry about it. You just pull the starters, because if you bring your closer in, let's say he throws a pick or something, you put the starter right back in. You can't do that. You can't do that in baseball.
Right.
You can do that in football though. You can put Daniel Jones back on the field.
You could.
Let's say you have a 10 or 14 point lead and you put your closer in.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's a 7-point lead, then a 3-point lead, and he's looking horrible. Put your starter back in.
Yeah, you could. I mean, I guess you could. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just think it's an interesting concept that could revolutionize the idea of a quarterback.
Why don't you take this to some colleges first, some like Division III, Division II colleges, see if they can implement it, see if you have some success, and you can take it all the way up.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, because you look at Nick Foles. I mean, Nick Foles is a horrible quarterback, okay? But he has this uncanny knack to come off the bench and lead a team to victory. Now, here's another caveat. Can he only do that when they're behind, when he doesn't have any pressure? Yeah, or if you're ahead, can he do it? You see, I don't know, but
So, in your case, let's go the flip side of the coin. There, in your case, let's say I'll just use Daniel Jones and Nick Foles. Those seem like the two guys of the stereotypical starter and closer. Okay. Let's say that Daniel Jones, you start him and he's not playing well.
Right.
Let's say he's playing bad. Do you let him play until or do you pull him in the second quarter if you don't like the way he's playing? Put it your closer.
It depends on the game situation, I guess.
Yeah, but
you don't bring your closer in if there's not a game to save.
Right.
Okay, so you just let him play the whole game.
Yeah, I think that goes along with what Joseph says. Is that's the development of the young quarterback. In other words, he's got to fight through adversity, right?
You treat him just like a baseball player.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying this is something you do forever. I'm just saying we could create an entire industry, right? In other words, like they drafted Daniel Jones. All right, he's the starter last year. This is his second year. There may come a time, it may be next year, it may be his fourth year, when now he becomes a Peyton Manning, Eli Manning type guy. Now you don't need your closer anymore. So now you've got a backup quarterback, right? But you bring in your closer to a point where you develop this guy or Or if you don't want to go franchise quarterback, you just go with a Fitzpatrick type guy and a closer. I mean, maybe that's the model you want to do. Here's a perfect example. What about Lamar Jackson? This would be perfect for him, right? They were ahead 21-10 in this game against the Titans. Right. Bring your closer in, right? Yeah. I mean,
and that's what the Ravens should do. I don't know how this would work with the contracts, but they need to get Joe Flacco back. He's their closer.
Whatever,
right?
Our producer Nathan Miranda has the same affinity for Joe Flacco as my co-host Joseph Miranda has for Adrian Peterson. Yeah. So. They're the guy.
Here's what the Ravens do. After the season, they keep Lamar Jackson as the starter. They re-sign or trade for Flacco as their closer. You don't have to pay him a lot. He'd probably be willing to do that. You fire the head coach and you hire Brian Billick. That's a great plan.
See, Lamar Jackson would be a great. Let's go with Nathan's idea. Let's say you bring Joe Flacco back, right? If they have the lead. You bring Lamar Jackson in, he just runs it around, and they're not going to be able to stop it, right? Even if you're behind, he can run it.
So you're saying Lamar Jackson's the closer?
I'm saying you could do it either way you wanted to. I'm saying you could use Lamar Jackson as a closer because of the skills he has running the football,
I wouldn't.
Not throwing. But I think the other side is the better one. Yeah. When you were ahead 21-10 the other day, bring your closer in right there.
Imagine if Flacco would have come in the game for the Ravens ahead 21-10. You think they'd lose that game?
I don't think so.
Probably not.
I don't think so. No, not the Joe Flacco we remember, right? But my point is that's what you needed. That you needed a guy like, you needed a guy that could make the throws and move the ball down the field to close the game out. That's what you needed to have in that situation. Okay, I think.
Yeah, Joe Flacco.
So, what would be the amount of points to qualify for a save in football? 14?
That's a good point. In baseball, it's what, 3 runs?
3 runs.
Yeah, I'd say it has to be under 1 score. It can't be. You can't be ahead by 2 scores. Otherwise, it doesn't qualify as a save.
I agree.
You can still bring your closer in, but it's not going to qualify.
Less than 14 points.
No, less than 1 score.
Oh, you said 1 score.
In other words, the other team has the ability to tie or go ahead with 1 score.
Okay.
A touchdown or less.
I got you.
You understand? But if you're ahead by 10 or 9 or 11 or more, it doesn't qualify. You can still bring him in, but if you win, it doesn't qualify as a save for him. Right. Right.
No, Jimmy, I was just thinking maybe 2, but one makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because 14 is a pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that would be an interesting.
But like you said, there, if they can tie it by scoring and going for 2, that's still a close.
Yes, still a close. Correct. Save. Right.
Yeah, I mean that's.
What would you call this? Like they have the West Coast offense, or you call this the Joseph Miranda offense, or
interesting. I like that. The old linebacker offense.
Yeah, I mean it's.
You can have a whole time. You can have your own coaching jury.
I could.
People who that learn from under you and they go different places.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean now in baseball they've got openers, right?
Right, so, right. That's a new theory.
And that still sounds ridiculous, but it's kind of accepted now. So why can't this be accepted? It's not a terrible idea.
I think this could revolutionize football, and it could be good for football. But I think it's the opposite in baseball. I think they need to go back to just starting your guy and forget all these openers and closers and middle relievers and long relievers and short. I mean, like, well, you bring in like a middle reliever, like I can only pitch 3 innings. I'm a middle reliever. I'm not a long reliever. It's like you need a starter, you need a reliever, and a closer. That's it.
Right.
You don't need all these middle and and a closer should be able to pitch more than 2 innings.
Yeah, but that's
we're talking baseball. I'm just saying baseball needs to go back to less options. Football needs to expand their options.
Right, I agree.
Let's finish up with the Buccaneers Rams game from last night.
Okay.
The title of our last show is Brady Stumbles, right? The Buccaneers stumbled again last night.
Can't play at night. Yeah,
can't play at night. That's an interesting theory. The Super Bowl will be played at night, and a lot of playoff games will too. So.
But Brady obviously can. He's won the last Super Bowl. Something about the team can't play it. Right?
Yeah. The Buccaneers 7-4, Rams 7-3. Buccaneers haven't had their bye week yet. So they'll have that coming up in week 13, I think. But how do we still feel about that situation?
Well, it's easy to say this now, but after week 1 at the Saints, the way the Buccaneers played, after that, remember they start playing a whole lot better. People were like, "Oh, MVP for Brady," and It's easy to say now, but I never really felt like they were a legitimately good team. I don't know.
I don't either. Yeah,
like I said,
I guess I'm buying into them more than you guys are, I guess. Or I have been.
Because you got half their team on fantasy.
Yeah. And I was always kind of like, well, they look pretty good this week. Yeah, but I never really completely bought into it. Like I said, maybe it's easy for me to say that now. I don't know if you would have asked me. I don't know what I said back then.
Like the game against the Packers, they just blew out the Packers. They looked great, right? And then they come out and they lose to the Bears. They should have won that game. They were right there last night. They really should have won that game.
I'm not saying they don't have the ability to blow teams out and play well. I'm saying I don't think they're legitimately a good team. I don't think they're going to do anything in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to, I don't think they're a serious contender.
I don't either. I think what you're seeing here, in my take on it, is Brady made 3 or 4 really bad throws last night, and then the interception he threw at the end of the game was a terrible. He should have never thrown that ball where he threw it. I mean, he overthrew the guy horribly. Okay, I think Brady. He's still I don't want to call him a great. He's still a very, very, very good quarterback. But I think he's just getting to the end of his career. What's the old saying? Father Time is undefeated. Yeah. I mean, I don't care if you want to play. I'd like to still play semi-pro football, but at this point, I just think I'm done. My point is, Father Time is undefeated. Now, Brady can still play. Brady can still lead them to the playoffs. Okay, but he's not the same Tom Brady. All right. The second thing is, he's not with the Patriots anymore. We talked about this. Yeah. I mean, that team doesn't have Belichick. It doesn't have the coaching situation set up. It's not a do-your-job organization. Yeah. I mean, these guys haven't completely bought it. Now, that doesn't mean that next year they may be better when Brady gets more of his philosophy in place. But you got a guy that wears a little beret as their head coach. I mean, it's just a different setup, okay? Yeah. So, I don't know about the Buccaneers. I think they may win one game in the playoffs if they end up playing the NFC East champion, but I don't see them beating the Packers again, and I don't see them beating the Saints. Those two for sure.
Well, I'm not as sold on the Saints. Everybody's like, oh, the Saints are the 1 seed now, which technically they are, but
I'm not sold on the Saints at all. They seem to have the Buccaneers number, though.
Oh, yeah, okay.
In the division, fine, but they're not going to do anything in the playoffs, the Saints, I don't think.
We got Breeze, who's also at the end of his career, and you got Taysom Hill, who's a tight end according to fantasy football. You could have started him as a tight end yesterday.
Yeah, you're right.
Or 2 days ago.
Yeah.
In fantasy football, and got quarterback production.
Yeah, but you won't be able to do that next week.
No, they're changing it.
Which is ridiculous.
Well, but here's the thing that Taysom Hill does for the Saints. It almost makes them a Lamar Jackson Ravens team from last year, okay? In other words, he can throw the ball down the field. He's got a strong arm. He's not a great thrower as far as putting it where it needs to be, but he can run, all right? And that's what makes defenses, it's hard for defenses to adjust to that, okay? Whereas Breeze, he just sits back in the pocket and throws it, okay? So that may help the Saints a little bit, all right? But I still think when you get deep in the playoffs and you play a team that's got a really good defense, I think the Rams could beat the Saints. The Rams' defense is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, their offense is suspect sometimes, but...
Well, people seems like they forget they're in the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And last year they had one of the Super Bowl hangover type year, but they're largely the same team.
Right, exactly. I mean, Jared Goff is a good quarterback. He's not... I wouldn't put him in the level of Hall of Fame yet, but he's a good quarterback. And what's his name? Sean McVay. Is that his name? Sean McVay? Yeah. I mean, he's pretty... I watched last night. He's pretty... His usage of the formations and the way he does things, he's got a plan and he knows what he's doing. And right now, he's got a defense that's playing lights out. And that's the key for the Rams that makes them so difficult right now. I mean, you got Aaron Donald there. The guy's been double-teamed 187 times this year. I mean,
triple-teamed 20 times.
Yeah, I mean, when you have to triple-team a defensive tackle, think of what that does for the rest of your defense.
Yeah, you don't have to rush anybody.
When you were playing linebacker, if they had to triple-team the guy in front of you, think of how that would have helped you some, right? So it makes your defense much better, right? So, yeah, I think the Rams are a team that could be tough to deal with going forward.
Like you said, you want to put pressure on the quarterback, so let's rush 4 guys.
Exactly.
Bring pressure, you don't have to blitz or anything.
Exactly. So, I don't think the Saints are locked for anything. I just think they seem to have the Buccaneers number. That's all I'm saying. And that's where the Buccaneers may run into problems.
Well, then you get to the point, if they play again, it's hard to beat a team 3 times.
It is. It is. It is.
So, I don't know.
I guess, but not if you're better than the team, right? I mean, I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like that. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. If you're better than the team, you'll beat them 3 times.
Well,
but in a playoff scenario where you're both good enough to obviously get to this point, it's not like the Chiefs beating the Jets 3 times.
What's like that stat term? Your wins, your first 2 wins have no. What's that? You again? There's like a stat terminology for this. Everything's reset like each time. It just has no bearing.
It's
like flipping a coin. If you flip it 3 heads,
they're mutually exclusive.
It has no effect on the next probability it's going to be heads.
Right.
It's still 50-50 every time. Like
it's a little different.
Is it a little different though? I don't know.
Coin just chance. You've got 2 games of film to watch on them. You can make adjustments. Blah blah blah.
But they're your division, so you already know them anyway. It's not like
but let's look at it this way. The Saints have played the Buccaneers twice. The first game of the season, we discounted that one because we said Brady. It's been a weird off season, right? No camp, all that stuff. But the second one, the Saints beat the crap out of them. I mean, that's what's so surprising about that game. Not that the Saints beat them. It's the way they beat them.
And on the road.
Yeah. And you'd think the Buccaneers would have played a better game.
And you all just said that, well, one of you said that they have the Buccaneers' number. So if they have their number and they're better than them,
they'll beat them again.
All of a sudden now they're going to be like, oh, well, now we don't know what to do. It's the 3rd time. The Buccaneers are like, now we got him. And they're going to be. I know that's the thing people say. I just never know if I really bought into that. The Giants beat the Cowboys 3 times in 2007.
Yeah, they did. You're right. Yeah, they did.
Because they were better than the Cowboys.
Or
they had the Cowboys' number, especially if you have a team's number.
Let's wrap up the NFL with this discussion here, because you mentioned the Giants and the Cowboys. The NFC East, okay?
Oh, gosh.
You got the Eagles in first place at 3-6-1.
And the other 3 teams
are 3-7.
Correct.
Right, like basically right there. Obviously have the same number of wins.
All of them do, yeah.
Okay. You know, somebody's going to the playoffs out of those 4, and somebody's going to host a playoff game.
Correct.
I'm okay with that.
I'm too.
I mean, stuff like this happens maybe once every 10, 15 years. You had the Seahawks 7-9.
Right.
But then you were talking about, were you seeing this, reading it, or hearing talk about the fact that, A, should a team like that even make the playoffs, which obviously if you win your division, you're in the playoffs. Yeah. B, should they be guaranteed to host a playoff game?
Yeah, I wasn't reading anything that led me to believe that the NFL was thinking of changing. It was just people making comments.
Well, then I'm totally fine with the way it is because, like I said, you don't get the scenario very often at all.
No. And I would say that if you're somebody who thinks that they shouldn't make the playoffs, then why do you need division?
Right. You don't need division.
There's no point in
scheduling purposes. There's
points, for scheduling purposes. But just do your playoffs like the NBA then. Right? I mean, the NBA doesn't.
Oh, they have divisions.
They do have
scheduling.
They do. Yeah. But yeah, no. Listen, it's like baseball. Why do you think they went to a wild card game? Right? Because they want to put premium on winning the division. Right? And that's the way it should be in football. Right. I don't care if your division is horrible. If you win it, you are the champion, and you get in the playoffs, and you host a game. Okay, now, here's my point. I think I said this to you the other day. The winner of the NFC East is going to host a game, but they're going to be the 4th seed. Okay? Right. So somebody's going to be better than them that's going to be the 5th, 6th, or 7th seed, so just go beat them, right?
Unless you've already beat them twice, though.
Well, that's true.
Then you have a game on your hands, let me tell you.
So there shouldn't be any question, right? I mean, if... there shouldn't be any problem there.
I agree with that. It's not, if they're that bad, then just go beat them.
I mean, if the Buccaneers end up going 11-5 and end up as a wild card, and they have to go to New York or Dallas or Philadelphia,
they have to go play the football team.
Just beat them, right? I mean, that's all you got to do, right? I mean,
if Brady has to go into Washington, you better watch out for his career.
Yeah, he better
get injured.
Yeah, the Washington
football team.
Well, apparently, all these quarterbacks are getting like season-ending injuries in Washington.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, I think for Brady, a career-ending injury wouldn't be that bad because he's got. I mean, anything he does now is icing on the cake, and it's probably not going to get much better than what he's done. But yeah, I think the NFC East, it's really going to be interesting as a Giants fan. I think I said this, that if the Redskins beat the Cowboys, what?
They're good.
If the Redskins beat the Cowboys Thursday on Thanksgiving, and the Giants beat the Bengals, and the Seahawks beat the Eagles, the Giants would be in first place at 4-7, which somebody's going to be in first place at 4-7, right?
Yeah.
Or 4-6-1.
It's a very plausible scenario you just laid out.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of things could happen, and you could have a team win that division that's 6-10. Really, I mean, it could happen. So that's pretty weird.
I was just going to say, if Brady wins the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers either this year or next year, is he hands down best quarterback in history? Then you'd say, I know you all might not say he is currently, but if he were to do that, would you say it's hands down now? Super Bowl, 2 different teams, won one he was 42 or whatever.
Well, yeah, I don't want to get into a big discussion about what how to define. I mean, he already is the best. I mean, he has 6.
Okay. So you both think he already is.
He's the greatest quarterback of all time. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Who did I watch that was the best at playing quarterback of all time? Peyton Manning. Yeah. Okay, but he's not as great as Brady.
Okay, so for you it doesn't change. How about would you already say he's the greatest quarterback of all time, no matter what happens?
If you're going to define it by Super Bowl wins,
then he is. Okay. I guess let me rephrase that then. If you're somebody who doesn't believe he's the greatest quarterback of all time, I would think that if he was to win the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers this year or next year, you'd have to say he is. Yeah. If you don't think he already is.
Yeah. And let's remember,
if it's not about pure titles for you, him achieving this would have to put him over the top.
Well, let's remember that Peyton Manning won Super Bowls with 2 different teams, but the second one with the Broncos, it was more the defense. He wasn't. But if Brady does it, it'll be more Brady than it will be the rest of the team. Yeah.
Plus, how old was Manning when he won that?
30. Yeah,
30.
Yeah, so he was pretty old. Okay. And he had that neck problem.
He wasn't as old as Brady.
He already had the neck problem?
He had the neck problem already.
Okay. So then, okay.
But you're right. Brady would have more of a hand in it. Manning was just kind of handing it off and don't get us in trouble.
I guess another thing. I guess my other point is, if you're somebody who doesn't believe Brady's the best quarterback of all time, a lot of those people probably would point to the fact that he was a product of the Patriots offense and the Patriots system. Maybe. Right. Well, if he would have won without them, that proves that wasn't the case. Yeah. So then no one I think said that Manning was a product. He was the Colts system. Like he was called his own. Like no one says that he was a product of the Colts.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think the thing that makes it's hard to. I mean, I guess you have to look at Super Bowls when you talk about the greatest of all time. But quarterback play is a lot of it is decision making, which we don't know. As a fan, you don't know what goes into all that. But what made Brady so great in all those Super Bowls is that when they got the ball, he could drive them down the field because he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew where to go with the football. He knew what the defense was going to do. He put the ball in the right situation. I mean, those are things that the fan doesn't see. All they see is the completions and the touchdowns, and that's what separates a Peyton Manning, a Tom Brady, a Joe Montana. That's what separates those guys is that ability to do that, and that's why I think you have to put those 3 guys to me are the greatest ever because of that. I wouldn't even put Terry Bradshaw into that category, even though he won 4 Super Bowls. So.
All right. Do you want to touch on college at all? Or?
Yeah, just real quick. Let's just touch it real quickly on college football. We're getting down to the end of the season here. We've got the first, I think tonight, the first.
That's tonight, that's right.
Yeah, college football rankings will come out,
playoff
rankings, which should be no surprise. Alabama will be 1, Notre Dame will be 2, Ohio State will be 3, and Clemson will be 4. But you got Alabama's got to play Auburn this week. Notre Dame plays North Carolina, which I think is their last tough test in the regular season, and then they'll have to play Clemson again. So. I know you guys don't follow college football a lot, but I guess we'll just end it on, we got the Pac-12 out there. Some of those teams are going to be ranked. They've only played 1 or 2 games, which is ridiculous. And the Big Ten's played like 4 or 5 games, which I think is also pretty ridiculous. Yeah. So
what's the question?
No, what do you think? I mean, do you think those guys should be in consideration?
I don't think you'll have to worry about them putting a Pac-12 team in there because they're not even qualified, are they?
I don't think they qualify. They're playing 8 games.
They started later in the Big Ten. Right. So, but you're going to get Ohio State milling around the top 4. They may be in there tonight.
They probably will be, yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think they should be in there. Like even if they are legitimately the 4th best team, should have started on time with everybody else. You said you didn't want to play a season. So now you come late to the party and see how it's working out. You can't just be automatically put in the playoffs.
There has to be some penalty to the debauchery that went on.
You can play your season, but you're not going to be included in the playoffs.
I agree with that. Yeah,
and not just because of all that went on, but they're just playing less games. I mean,
but as far as
no, they're not playing less games.
As far as
they are.
Yeah. The rankings. Alabama's the clear number 1 team in my opinion.
Yes, I agree with that.
They have to. Somebody has to prove they can beat them. Right?
I agree with that.
Notre Dame made a big step by beating Clemson because Clemson was kind of in that category with Alabama,
but with the starting quarterback.
Right. Well.
Right. No, you're right.
Right, but they'll play again with.
Notre Dame has to prove that they can beat a Clemson or Alabama in a neutral site in a playoff game.
So that's what they're. I know I can already see tonight. Notre Dame will be ranked 2nd, I think. But the analysts will be not giving them any respect based on the history, which they're going to overdo it. But I see the point, like you said, they have to prove they can win a playoff game.
Well, but you see, the analysts are a little bit up against the wall this year because Notre Dame's in a conference. Yeah. Okay, so and they've beaten Clemson. Yeah. That's the difference, right?
That's what I said. They will be ranked number 2.
But they'll still say that they don't have what it takes to do anything in the playoffs.
Right.
They can't make a case for them not to be in the playoffs.
No.
They can make a case for them that they're not going to do anything.
Right. Which 2 years ago they were trying to make a case.
They shouldn't be in the playoffs.
Right. Because the Clemson one's going to be hard for people to say anything about them, but the rankings will come out. They'll be number 2.
Right.
Then they'll kick it to one of these guys and be like, "Give me your top 4," and he'll be like, "I've got Notre Dame at 5." You know, there's some nonsense like that.
Alabama, Clemson.
I guarantee you one guy will say that. I guarantee it.
All right, so you think one analyst tonight will have Notre Dame out of the top 4?
Yeah, somebody will.
Yeah, probably. They probably will.
That'd be interesting. Undefeated beat Clemson. No,
yeah.
I don't think they will. I think if anything, they'll put them at 4. But I think all these guys know they can't put them out of the top 4.
I think it's very likely that they'll have Notre Dame at 3, behind Ohio State.
In the official rankings?
Maybe not the official rankings, but some of these analysts will say that.
Maybe.
You can't. I mean, Notre Dame's
going to be number 2. They're going to be number 2.
Yeah, let's watch it because if somebody has them at 5 or lower, we should do another episode and talk about it because I want to hear what you all have to say.
But it doesn't really matter. College football this year is a joke.
Yeah,
so, let's face it, it's a joke. So anyway,
Coastal Carolina's still undefeated.
That's right. Josh Carraway of the Chanticleers. We gave him some good luck. It seemed like
we've given him some tremendous.
They were a mere 2-0 when they came on.
That's right.
Maybe 3-0.
Right.
I don't remember.
Josh, if you're listening, as I said on our last podcast. If you guys get to a New Year's Six bowl, we're waiting for some swag.
Yeah. That's right. So we'll follow their season as it comes to a close as well. Here, we'll be sure to mention that in our next episode. Before we sign off, as always, we want to remind you to follow us on Twitter if you're not already at PressBoxPod. Maybe we'll put a poll question up there. How hard is it to beat a team a third time? Because we have some spirited discussion about that, as you saw. So we maybe we'll throw that out to the listeners, and because surely that people have heard that saying. But
it's a pretty popular saying.
But nevertheless, we enjoyed this another NFL recap episode, and we'll keep doing these through, until the playoffs get here. At which point we'll have tons more to talk about as far as the NFL and college playoffs and. Right around the corner from the NBA starting up again.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait for that.
About a month, December 22nd, less than a month now.
Yeah, so, right. Yeah. Are they going to be in a bubble again, or what's the deal?
No, I don't think so.
No.
But I don't know about fans. But maybe we didn't touch the NBA draft, obviously. We'll maybe get to that in the future, maybe not. But so that'll be it for this episode, and we appreciate you listening, as always, to the Press Box Podcast.